everybody. Happy pre-election day in Bombay. I am just gonna get Arpit, the man of the night, to come and join us. Give me a second. I feel. I'm gonna quickly talk a little bit about what we're gonna do today till I get. Oh, Arpit is here. Hi, Arpit.
Hi, Devangana. How are you?
I
Good
am
to see you.
good. Good to see you. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you properly. Awesome. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is, Arpit, I'm going to quickly thank you so much for doing this on a Sunday morning for you.
No problem.
So this is fabulous. It's a Sunday night for us. Bombay is going to be voting tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is I'll quickly set some primer for this conversation because I think it's just apt for every field.
Yeah.
And then we'll get started with introduction and all else. So super excited. Thank you. Okay. So, hi everybody. Today is the eve of Mumbai's India election chapter. We're going to chat today with Arpit for about 30 to 40 minutes about the role of advocacy and how to make it most effective. But just to set some clear primer, when a country is going from developing to developed, all forms of its capital, that's human capital, intellectual, political, social, cultural, ecological, trading, financial, they all have to be working at their optimal. And only then can we actually see progress when all forms of our capital are working well. India is a country of 1.5 billion with over 100 languages, over 700 tribes, and all possible world religions living here, with some, of course, dominating. Mostly predominant religions might be whatever they are. So what we see today on social media or in our cities is a very small percent of truly what is our India of 1.5 billion. And that's where the role of advocacy becomes very important to truly share the actual ground experiences of what's happening in a country, what are the barriers to change, what are the banes, what are the everyday life experiences. And I think that's where when we actually give voice to all all the diaspora of a country is when we can truly understand how to make true progress. And that's why I think politics and advocacy becomes really important. Let's quickly chat. I'll quickly tell you how I met Arpit. So we were both at Davos at the World Economic Forum in 2020. And we happened to be in the same forum, same hotel, same many places. And that kind of got us talking on long rides, car rides about politics, IS exams, how our country works, our backgrounds, Delhi, all of these other things. Arpit has a master's in public administration from Cornell University. He's a policy entrepreneur. He's the founder of a political risk management and policy advocacy firm, Insights International. He's also the co-founder and chief executive officer of Global Policy Insights, which is a centrist think tank focused on governance, international political economy, international security studies, sustainability, which is based out of New Delhi, New York, and London. He's the chief strategy officer and co-founder of Envipol, which is an environmental consultancy firm based out of New Delhi. I remember you were building this when we met back in 2020. I clearly remember that. And he serves as the joint director of the Global Policy, Diplomacy, Sustainability Fellowship. He co-chairs many international affairs and public diplomacy forums, and he does a lot of other stuff in Quad Security Forum, Women International Affairs, and brings diverse voices to the table. So that's kind of like my quick spiel, but now I'm going to open it to you. Sorry about my cat, you could just ignore him. Over to you. Yeah. Like just start with introducing yourself and then we get into the questions.
Great. So, Devangana, you gave a fairly good introduction, and if I were to add to it, I mean, the only thing that I would say is that my approach towards public policy, advocacy, and stuff like that comes from a somewhat rationalist perspective, not completely, but I am one of those who typically feels that laws are helpful, and a lot of the declarations that the UN does, etc. Those things are helpful, but the real, you know, juice of the game is whether people's actual incentives on the ground are changing.
Yeah.
And unless those incentives are not modeled, typically I take a game theoretical approach to all of the work that I do, and I feel that unless incentives are not modeled, we will not be able to make any real changes. So, for example, I would just give you a very brief example. I've been in a lot of these G20,
Your voice.
etc. as well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Huh.
I was saying that I have been in a lot of these G20 sessions and a lot of these meetings as well, where people talk about the fact that, okay, G20 should work on, I was in the climate related discussions in that context, and they talk about that we should talk about how people should live in harmony with the nature. We should do this XYZ. But my question always is that, okay, we should talk about it, but how do we get things done on the ground? How do we change people's incentives? How do we change the government's incentives uh, to make real change? Because we could talk forever, but can we start thinking about real action? That's usually the way that I approach work. So yeah.
Totally. Like, how do you create behavior change,
Yeah.
action? It's
Yeah.
like it's easy to talk. There's so many podcasts and so many YouTubers so passionate about politics, but like at the end of the day, what causes behavior change, what causes action
Yeah.
change becomes important.
Yeah.
So let's quickly start with like, since it's a short conversation, I want to also open it to questions if there are any.
Sure.
So Arpit, I've been in the space of autism for very long. I'm very politically driven. My last book was about, pre-independence India. I'd written that about a Muslim girl's life through pre-independence India. So when I want to understand that at a national policy making level, we want to make sure that advocacy is truly doing its job, right? And India is a very big country. It's 1.5 billion. There are about 3,500 special schools. There are all these other psychiatrists. Like, there's just a lot of things going on in the space of autism in India. I'm just going to take autism as an example.
Yes.
There are very small patches where I see holistic, excellent work going on, but sometimes that is dominated by the predominant voice of everything else that's going on, right? And policies sometimes favor that majority work rather than like a pocket mein kuch acha kaam ho raha hai, all of that. What would be your thoughts on how should advocacy guide like this voice and this work forward without getting into cancel culture? Because it's very easy to be like, how do we like actually truly advocate for what is possible than what is the majoritarian work going on?
Yeah, and that's always a difficult question. In fact, I always admire your work because you have chosen an uphill battle. The issue that you're working on, one could call it autism or neurodiversity, that particular, and I do read your newsletter every now and then as well.
Yeah.
I feel that, the approach that a lot of non-profits and NGOs working in similar issues they take is that their advocacy's agenda or their advocacy's end game is that can we get a legislator to do something for us? Can we, get a question raised in the parliament, or can we get a private member's bill, tabled in the parliament, or stuff like that? And there, my first reaction to some of these things is that how do you first have to understand where power lies, and where one's advocacy should be directed towards. Because what I feel is that in India, for example, if you look at the history of, let's say your agenda is to work with the MPs and work with the MPs to come up with a bill that would give certain special rights to a particular group, you need to understand that MPs in India don't make law directly. I mean, an individual MP barely has a power to make any law. Laws are, the bills that pass are usually top down. It's either the party leadership that has influence on proposing a bill, or it is a ministry or the cabinet that typically has any sort of initiative in proposing a particular bill. If you look at, for example, private member bills in India, there have been only 14 private member bills that have passed since independence until now. And the last that passed was in 1970, nothing after that. Because we came up with, the anti-defection law, which means that you have to vote as per your party lines. And that means that it is the party that decides which bill will come on the parliament, and everyone in that party will have to vote accordingly. So I meet a lot of people. I mean, earlier as well, I met a lot of tech groups who said that, or gender advocacy groups who said that we want to make a women's caucus in the parliament, etc. And it's a good initiative, but it's not definitely aligned with the end game, because if for gender rights you create a women caucus, you have to understand that in India, caucuses don't work the way that they work, let's say in the US Senate. It's not a thing. And instead of getting different parliamentarians together, if one was to talk to party leadership or ministries, that would be a lot more useful. The reason why I'm telling you this is that, typically, if you, let's say, look at any of these populations, especially neurodiverse populations, they don't form a solid vote bank for any politician.
Yeah.
Right. And when you don't form a solid vote bank, and for any politician, there are a gazillions of demands that are coming at their table. There are gazillions of advocacy groups that are coming to their table. And it could range from, saving whales in a particular, ocean side, to something very specific that, can I get this subsidy for my farm? So they are also operating under great information overload. So where do you focus your efforts becomes very important. And there I feel, some of these issues which are related to neurodiverse populations, etc., the efforts really need to be devoted towards the private sector, because what you want to get out of the society at large for these populations, private sector is a good place to start, and is more easy to influence in terms of aligning incentives. And if you get stronger, and I could get into the how of that, you could create invited spaces, and in those invited spaces with the government, you can then begin to influence policy. So I feel that a lot of times organizations, in the name of advocacy, are chasing the wrong targets. So yeah.
Correct. And I think that's my worry, that India is actually like quite further ahead in the policy they should have for neurodiversity, or policy they should have for special needs, or any of that. Like a disability justice quota and all of that is really good, well formed.
Very
but
progressive.
Are we as human capital working, like as human beings, as systems, as schools, working to meet those the luxury of the policies that we have in place? And I think that also happens with women empowerment, that happens with lots of other places. Are we really rising to the policy? And how do we talk a little bit more about that? Like, how do people actually rise to the policy?
And very difficult to do, Devangna, because at the end of the day, if you take any your law, it is ink on paper. And I'm now drawing from a little bit of work from Professor Kaushik Basu, who I help him with research, and amazing intellectual. And he really says that in his book Republic of Beliefs, that policies and laws are ink on paper. They don't change people's games of life.
Yeah.
So my game of life doesn't change because you've asked me to do XYZ. Now, how do you change people's incentives to actually do stuff which is in line with the policy? And that needs solid game theoretical analysis over there. So, for example, one interesting bit, and this is from other research, is how do I see how, let's take a specific case, schools. Uh, there are a whole range of schools in India who are highly sensitized to completely ignorant about neurodiversity. Now, the things, if I were to use game theory and apply it to the situation, there are policies. Some schools are very compliant, some schools are not. I would probably create a rating system, and I would, publicize that ratings with celebrities, etc., and rate schools literally on which schools are great at it, which schools are not so great at it, which schools are completely ignorant, and that would hopefully spark a competition between these schools, and that sort of a competition. If the parameters of my rating system are benchmarked with the current policy, and see which school follows it the most, which school follows it the least, you'll see more and more schools entering that competition. People and organizations, they like to compete, and they like to chase
Yeah,
goals. We know
yeah,
that.
yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would use tactics like those first of all. And there as well, there is other research which says that there are, in advocacy, there are essentially four types of groups. There are the naysayers, there are the fence sitters, there are the supporters, and there are the thought leaders. And for different folks, you need different strokes over there. Where you know for your thought leaders, you need to, they're usually intrinsically motivated, and to those people, you must let them lead your
Yeah.
movements in advocacy. To the supporters, they may not be always intrinsically motivated. It's usually a mix of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And to them, you have to give them the extrinsic incentive as well.
Yeah.
The interesting bit comes in how you deal with the fence sitters over there. So with fence sitters, what you really need to do is, a lot of times people, and this is where your mention of the cancel culture comes in as well,
Yeah.
that a lot of people would punish the fence sitters for being fence sitters, and that makes them jump on the other side of the fence and join the ranks of the naysayers. So not a great strategy. A good strategy to deal with fence sitters is to show them that if they become supporters, what sort of amazing incentives they would get. So show them party pictures of the other side, that if they become supporters, it's a really good life for them. uh, and
Yeah.
for the naysayers, you got to ignore them. You got to minimize their uh, you know the attention that is given to them. Those are the things. But naysayers, you really can't do much. But it is how you deal with the fence sitters, the supporters, and your thought leaders.
So
And
Arpit, can I like just jump in here for a second? So basically, like advocacy is easy to do when it's an easy group, right? Like doing like advocacy to build a temple somewhere, advocacy ki yahan pe park bana do, like like that kind of advocacy
yeah,
is easy. But India is also a country of many minorities. Muslims have become a minority, but also there's many minorities. There's been like history and generational trauma that lots of minorities have struggled with, suffered.
yeah,
There's also like a lot of like riots that have happened in India with certain religions. So sometimes when there is advocacy from minorities, advocacy from history of abuse, trauma, being ostracized, their advocacy efforts look very different from an organized advocacy effort ki temple bana do, park bana do, right? So which is where the role of politics comes in, where we want an organized, well functioning country. And like America is good with really uniting diverse voices, true democracy, all voices are heard, things like that. In India, I still feel we're in a place where there's no space for dissent, there's no space for, we don't like, they have less empathy for if you're coming from, you know, an ostracized, oppressed community, what advocacy should be done for you, who should be doing that advocacy, how should that be done. I think we have less sensitivity to that, and that's why I think like advocacy and politics of a country really go hand in hand. What are your thoughts on that?
My
What are some good examples of advocacy you've seen for minority
Yeah,
groups?
yeah. So Devangana, my thoughts on that are the following: that I feel that the US has its own problem.
Huh.
Any country, every country has its own problems, and I would think that in every country, minorities, at least in the world that we are living in right now, with the sort of democratic backsliding, etc., that's happening all over the world, minorities are having a tough time everywhere, and I feel that there is always you know there's always a way for minorities to get their voices heard,
Hmm.
and I feel that's usually by creating claimed spaces. And if I were to give you an example,
Yeah.
this is an example from 1950s 60s Baltimore, outside of DC, where the black population was severely persecuted by the police, were extremely poor, and when they would protest or when they would create any sort of a representation in their local community meetings, etc., it would never be picked up by the press, or in the town hall meetings, whatever they would want to say, their representations would not be heard. Even if they were heard, they were not really put on paper. So what was happening over there is you know uh, uh, there is this thing called hidden power, which is not the power that's being played out in the
Hmm.
open, but
Hmm.
it's the power to not let an agenda seep into the platforms that matter.
Hmm.
So it's, in a way, the power to stay silent on certain agendas.
Hmm.
And when you're facing that sort of a problem, that there's a problem and you're voicing that problem but nobody's hearing your voice, what do you do? So typically what you do is you create a platform of your own, and you try to make that platform as big as possible, because you know that in the traditional platforms you're not going to find a space.
Hmm.
And there have been not just in advocacy. So that's what the civil rights movement did over here
Yeah.
in the.
Yeah.
You see that with the Indian independence movement as well, that they created a platform of their own, and that's how things progress from there.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Hmm.
But what you also see that is in art movements. So if you look at impressionist artists, etc., like Cezanne, they were not able to find spaces to show their art in the traditional art galleries, and that was expensive, and these were new kids on the block. So what they did was that they put up a ragtag art gallery right in front of the traditional art gallery, and people started coming over there, and then the impressionist movement was born. So sometimes what you got to do is that you got to create a different platform and make that platform famous enough.
So Arpit, like, I'll be super honest, but I think like that's where India is still struggling, because I'm minor. Like, you know, India में काली लड़की को लगाया शादी नहीं होगी. You know, you show an autistic child acting out. They, like, the whole family will be ostracized from social circles.
Yeah.
You start sharing Dalit stories, like that their family is going to actually be put away. That, you know, like they'll stop being invited to people's homes for meals. So I think there's still a lot of stigma in actually, like, we'd rather have somebody go and represent a minority and be like, these are the problems, than actually like have the bravery to put that. And if we start to put out like bad stories and things like that, like, I mean, you're from
It is
India.
it is
We're,
a
yeah.
pervasive problem, Devangana, and I still do feel that there are a lot of success stories in India as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Talk
and
about some like good India success stories that you think like.
I mean, for me, there are many success stories. I mean, I worked with the National Commission for Scheduled Caste for 1 year
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
and I feel that in India, what B.R. Ambedkar has done is a success story in terms of uh, now in the circles of people who are making policy in India, coming from a scheduled caste or coming from a scheduled tribe
Yeah.
is not a matter of taboo. It could represent power
Totally.
as well.
Totally.
So,
It has taken
and
like decades and decades of change
it
for
has
that to
taken
happen. Yeah.
decades. It has
Yeah.
taken decades.
Yeah.
But, and that is not to deny that ostracization is not happening. It is happening still very pervasive.
Yeah.
But what I feel is that role models are very important over there. And I mean, I would think that when it is applying some of these things to the problem of getting neurodiversity advocacy going up, you would want to see that who are, let's say, the most successful neurodiverse entrepreneurs, and highlight their work, connect all of them. Who are the most successful neurodiverse politicians or bureaucrats, etc. Get them to mentor the younger folks, get them to build sort of a informal
Totally.
caucus with all of them. I
Totally.
would think that those sort of things would work a lot more rather than and as you rightly said that rather than just voicing out that these are our problems, etc. And problems are obviously there, and there is a need to voice them out every time, but also to show what a particular group is capable of, and to remove the stigma out of it by bringing forth not a little but many, many, many role
Yeah.
models. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And can you give like an example of like where like, because in India I think we're still struggling in many areas to show, like actually put those role models out properly, show them like give some examples of how that has been done, like just for people to get ideas, like give an example of something that you've.
I mean, there must be many examples, but as I was talking about earlier, that in the scheduled caste population now there are so many examples of many
Totally.
bureaucrats and many
Totally.
associations and many successful business people. Uh, then similarly, there are many examples of people who are physically,
Yeah.
handicapped,
Yeah.
getting into associations. Many of them I've met who have climbed. Some of them I've met who have climbed, great peaks such as Mount
Yeah.
Everest, etc. And
Yeah.
they are, amazing role
Yeah.
models.
Yeah.
And there are some organizations which are doing a very good job of bringing all of these people together so that they can cooperate with each other, and also highlighting their achievements.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important, and it's happening. I don't think that in our country we give marketing enough attention,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
But it is a very powerful tool. Networking and marketing could be very powerful
So
tools if we use them properly.
can I ask you a follow-up question to that, right? So that is the job of advocacy. You show like, a physically disabled person has climbed there, or like I just interviewed an autistic boy who is like a classical singer and he's stunning, and he had moderate autism.
Yeah.
But like those are some excellent stories. But my question to you is, the job of policy is like the hardships that boy has faced to get to where he is, or like the guy who's climbed Mount Everest or whatever else. Policy needs to be that how do we make that climb possible for a big group of people, right? So like the job of advocacy then also becomes that yes, like this is possible, but yes, how do we also like chart out that these are the challenges and make policy to make those challenges easier for other people?
I feel in many ways over there, Devangana, policy is the end game. So, what I mean by that is that there are many, many different things one has to do in order to eventually enshrine a particular practice into policy. So, for example, let's say our policy objective is to create a fund for people, who are neurodiverse and who want to pursue, let's say, doctoral education. Okay. Uh, Now, the thing is that public policy doesn't always have to come from the government. As long as we are talking about public goods, public policy applies. So, the thing is, I would then go to investors or preferably business folks who have been neurodiverse themselves, and ask them if they could create a scholarship in these in the name of supporting these neurodiverse candidates for doctoral programs. And once such initiatives are successful enough, only then I would go to the government and be like, okay, can you pitch in some money and enshrine this into policy as well. So I feel that a lot of times, yes, policy making could be the starting side of the game, but a lot of times it's the end game. And I do really feel that public policy is not always government action, because again, I'll tell you, the government will take action most effectively when they have a solid vote bank backing it up. Okay, because governments are run by political parties, and political parties need vote banks. But and I feel that in the case of certain groups such as the neurodiverse population, the vote bank problem is a big hindrance over there. Now, thankfully, in India, because of progressive lawmakers, we have great policies. So, the beginning game is still there, but then the second stage of people actually following that policy, that is missing. So, you need to then find people who would have a direct incentive in promoting this. And I would think that people who would have a direct incentive in promoting this are the sacrificers, are the trailblazers who have themselves walked that path, made sacrifices, but they don't want somebody else to go through the same hell that they have been through. So I would, in terms of public policy, first focus on that and then think that the government would do something about it.
That's really interesting. That's awesome. So how do you mobilize people to actually act on policy? And
yes, because also, Devangna, there is enough evidence in political movements that say that even if the government creates there are these different types of spaces which are considered. So one is a closed space, which is typically your parliament or your cabinet, etc., where public participation is not allowed. Okay, or direct public participation is not existent. Then there is a claimed space. So those are the sort of art galleries that we were talking about, that I have created my own space. I created a space. Between them is an invited space, that where the government invites you to sit down with them and to build policy. And enough case studies and research shows that governments only invite, or invited spaces are only successful if they are backed by a very strong movement. Okay, so unless the pressure is coming from a claimed space, an invited space doesn't work very well. Okay, and B, if the proceedings of that invited space, so let's say if tomorrow the government calls a few NGOs and says that we are making a policy on how can we benefit the neurodiverse population, and we want to sit down with you and see how we get this policy out there. If the discussions of such invited space are public enough, only then will that invited space be successful. Otherwise, it'll just be another empty room where some conversation happens and nothing else. If there's no movement backing that invited space up, and if there's not enough public attention.
So can I ask you one last question before I'll open it up for anything else you want to share? And my last question is, Arpit, there are some groups you really want to advocate for, women are powerful, women are stars, you want to push for women empowerment, for a Dalit group, you're they're people who are showing excellent results, but there's a blind, deaf, sometimes autistic, moderate to severe autism, like most people don't want to put true advocacy and power and human power to meet the policies, even if they're there, because they're a very difficult group, right? It's not like a women, or it's not like, a Muslim group, or like, things like that. It's very different. What are your thoughts on some of these like minorities, like, like Manipur, all of these this big thing happened this year, people are being killed, things like that. Like, my question is, do we really sometimes want to put energy at a national level into groups of people that just don't show that much stamina and potential? That's my first question. And my
Yeah.
second question is that sometimes when we see actually a raging, like, like let's say the Muslim population or the female power is really rising in a country, do we sometimes actually fear that? And do we also, like, do we at a government level, do they also put policies to kind of like calm that down? So talk about a little bit of like both of those.
No, it could happen. No, in my book, Our Egalitarian Universe, I do capture certain case studies where it happens, where if there is a suppressed group, and if that suppressed group is doing better, then the dominant group, the violence against that suppressed group would increase, because the dominant group would think that this suppressed group is improving at their expense.
Totally.
So
Totally.
typically, the real work of effective advocacy is to first soften the ground with the dominant group. Okay, so don't think that the dominant groups are not part of the equation.
Right.
If you're being realists about it,
Right.
you got to get buy-in from the dominant group as well.
Totally.
And then you can hope that any rise in the standards of this particular population, whether economic or political, would not be met with sufficient resistance. I mean, even with the independence movement, you needed some of your mouthpieces who were British
Yeah.
to soften the ground for you. It's not as if there's nobody, you won't do it. You won't strengthen yourself if there's nobody. But
Yeah.
it's all on the other side. But it's always useful to get some inside collaboration, inside cooperation with the dominant group. It's always makes things easier. Uh, Having said that, I would also say that again, there are always ways of doing things. There's always if again you come to the fact that there are certain issues that maybe could be solved at the local level, and you may not need national involvement at all, and sometimes national involvement could worsen things. That's number one. Also, what's probably more important for neurodiverse audience is that, let's say you don't find enough incentivized people in a particular geography, let's say at your national level, and let's say national government is not doing much about a particular issue, then you look at, instead of local, you go global and see if organizations such as the UN or
Yeah.
uh, other international NGOs, etc., you could get their support to advocate on your behalf at the national level, and a lot of times that works as well. And a lot of what I'm saying, in fact, there's this very interesting research website called powercube.net, and this is by a professor called Joseph John Gavetta. Yeah. And he talks about this thing called Power Cube, where he says that you got to analyze any situation based on whether the power is visible. So think of a Rubik's cube, and one axis of the cube is power is visible, power is hidden, or power is invisible. Another end of the Rubik's cube is are you talking about claimed spaces, invited spaces, or closed spaces? And another edge of the cube is, are you talking local, national, or global? And you could leverage, if you see a blockage in one particular aspect of that Rubik's cube, you could skip onto another and see if you could open a particular closed gate by seeing which gates are open for you right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll look
So,
it up.
I mean, I would think that, let's say there are many policies that state governments are not very keen on implementing. So what's the way to do it? You get the local and the national together, and they could, advocate with the state government to do something. Or if the national government doesn't agree, then you get the global and the local together to put pressure on the national government. And similarly, if you don't have access to closed spaces, then you create claimed spaces. If you don't have access to, uh, you know, uh, the hidden form of power, then you, take use of the invisible form of power, which is
Yeah.
essentially power of ideology and narrative. So
Yeah.
you got to find your permutations and combinations.
No, I love that. That's super interesting. I think like at the end of the day, we are
Yeah.
people like there's so many billions and thousands, millions of us who actually have the privilege and the luxury, Arpit, to like go and fight for people, to go and put our energy into thinking about where should I put power, where should I not, how should I navigate problems? Because most of India, especially today, is tackling things like water, sanitation,
Yeah.
poverty, keeping up their job, doing all of that, which means that privileged voices need to become, or like powerful voices need to keep speaking for people who just don't even have like the energy or time or the bandwidth to speak for themselves. And I think that's where intelligent advocacy becomes so important, which is sometimes what we
That's
forget.
true. And I always still think that the best advocacy comes from people who are directly
Huh.
impacted, with the more privileged folks playing the role of capacity
Yeah.
builders or facilitators, and not the front faces. I
I
think
I fully hear
you
you.
play the support function, and that is the best one could contribute.
Yeah. Yeah, but like even to like get like to mobilize these people to come and talk about their stories, their lives, what's happening, is has to be effort, right? Like you have to go to a village, you have to go to a special school, you have to go to like a adoption home, you have to go to a women center and like bring stories out and talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that, again, you got to be the platform in that case, because everyone has an incentive to tell their
Yeah.
story. It's not as if people don't. Sorry, there's a car
No,
going in the
that's fine.
background for some
Yeah.
noise. So everyone has an incentive. It's about everyone not having a platform or a safe space to do that.
Yeah.
So if you're able to do that, that in itself is a tremendous capacity uh, that one could contribute with.
Yeah. No, that's super
And
interesting because I feel
it's
like
probably going to be difficult at
yeah.
first, but then it's going to be increasingly more powerful. It's always probably going to be difficult, but yeah, it's going to get increasingly more powerful.
No, for sure. I mean, there's so many other thoughts that I have on exactly this that like do Muslim people actually want to come? How many Muslim people or how many Dalit people or how many women want to come out of their homes and actually like let's even forget autistic people, right? Come out and actually be the faces to tell their stories or what has happened or what have been their struggles, right? Like especially in a country like India,
Yeah,
we're
there
so
could be,
far behind.
for any minority group or any disadvantaged group, there could be incentives of not speaking out, because speaking out could uh, bring in persecution. But one always doesn't. The first step is to build power, right? So the thing
Yeah.
is that instead of making some of these grouses more public, could one get people to at least connect with each other
Right.
and build a solid narrative? I'm reminded of this book called Power of the Powerless by Václav Havel, first, president of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Now two countries, but he got Czechoslovakia out of the communist rule, the dictatorial rule. And he talks about the fact that there were certain spaces such as, underground rock clubs where people would just come and listen to music, but those were places where there was not a lot of government surveillance, and they would talk over there and they would discuss and essentially build a very clear narrative of what they're doing.
Like a strong
And
community.
yeah,
Yeah.
so sometimes just getting people together to talk to each other also is helpful, without all the time making that talk public, or making
Yeah.
that talk public
Right.
anonymously. So
Right. That's
yeah,
excellent. Yeah, that's super cool.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay, so I know we're already like 45 minutes in.
yeah.
Is there anything else that you feel like we should have talked about that we didn't?
I have to say one thing, that I personally have you know I've been through different phases where I have felt that India is doing great to there is no hope, and now I come to this conclusion that I feel that there is tremendous hope in India, because you know not just with the
Yeah.
government, but people outside of the government are also taking public policy seriously. Now I think that message has gotten into India. uh, it may not look very pervasive right now, but these things grow exponentially. I feel that the corporates in India do understand that, hey, public policy, or I think it started with CSR
Yeah.
initially, but broadly now they have a broader consciousness around this. People who are working in the corporates, people who are working in the non-profit sector, such as you,
Yeah.
are taking up these issues, and are coming with sufficient staying power. I think you've been at it since what, half a
Yeah.
decade or so.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean,
yeah,
like, I've been in this for like 15, 16 years, and I still,
15,
honestly,
16
I
years.
still
Yeah,
don't know what is good advocacy. Like, I've tried all things, but like, it's sometimes hard to think what should you want to highlight
yeah,
when you're
yeah,
talking about advocacy. So that's a struggle that I've faced for all
yeah.
my
But you're
life and work.
certainly doing something right, because you've been in this. If your strategy, let's look at this way, if your strategy was just mathematically wrong,
Yeah,
okay, then either by your choice or through your environment, you would have been made to quit this particular
totally,
field, right?
totally.
So, which means that there's something working
Something
over there.
working.
Yeah. And I do feel that, a lot of times these things, again, as I said, they are so exponential that initially it looks like it grows very slowly, but then it
Yeah,
happens very fast. So,
yeah.
I do have hope in that
I
manner.
do too. I do too. We're a big country. We're a passionate, energetic country. We're
Yeah.
in the midst of elections, and I come from a family which is always like Congress supporting, so it's like a very nerve-wracking time for us. But yeah, we'll see. So,
I personally feel that it's the same people across
huh,
political parties. So
huh,
I
huh.
look at things such as, I mean, I won't even say that look at different parties differently. I would just say that get the right people into the mix. They could
Totally.
be from
I
different
agree.
parties.
I
I don't mind.
agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. I
And there
fully agree.
are good people in all
I,
parties. In
I
all
agree.
parties.
I
Yes.
agree
Yeah.
with you. I
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome. So
All good.
I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna put powercube.net. Is there anything else you just want to put in the notes that you think you
I
you've
think
mentioned a few books? Yeah.
Power Cube is great. Václav Havel's Power of the Powerless is great. And then Stephen Luke's book, Power: A Radical View. That is, I think, these are some of the, I would say, landmark books when you
Awesome.
talk about power and
Awesome,
advocacy.
awesome. And my on my Brain Bristle Instagram handle, like I share all kinds of global
Awesome.
research excerpts every day. So if anyone
Yeah.
goes to that, it's easy to get like a bird's eye view of
Great.
truly understanding the
Yeah.
complexity of the face of
Yeah.
autism.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
awesome.
and thank you for those newsletters. Keep them
I
coming
will
in.
keep
I
them
find them to be
coming.
very
I will
useful.
keep
They
them
are
coming.
quick to
Yeah.
read, and they are engaging, and there's a lot of good information there.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this, Arpit. Have a good
Thank
Sunday,
you,
and
Devangna.
see you
Yeah.
soon when you're back in
See you.
India. I will share
I'm
this in
looking
a live
forward
as
to
a
that.
collaborator.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
welcome to
yeah.
Instagram Live World. Cheers. Have a
Thank you.
good day. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
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 See you.